to HRM Talks, a safe space where we explore a myriad of topics to understand and bond better with our little children. What skills do you use daily? What are your strengths and weaknesses? These questions usually confuse our children how to answer them, and I guess even to us also. What exactly are life skills and why it is so important? Let's understand this better. So today we have a compassionate life skill educator, a social entrepreneur who's working across the globe to raise the bar of life skills. She's also a creator of the Life Skill Report Card, a founder of International Consciousness Movement Parenting 2.0, president of their educational nonprofit, the Global Presence, a best-selling author, popularly known as Mama Marlin. Welcome, Mom. Let's welcome Miss Marlin Coover. We are so grateful that you took our time and you're here with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor and a privilege.
So, Mom, before we begin, I want you to tell me about you've been doing so many things, and it's like working as an ambassador of being a life skill educator. So, how does it look like when you go around? You've been working across the globe with different people. So, what exactly is life skill, and what does your work look like?
That is probably the singular most important question that we ourselves examined was what are life skills? What is the definition for life skills? And I myself, in my own classroom of learning life skills, I actually failed miserably when I was a young mother. I really kind of crashed and burned. And that forced me to examine myself. What's important in my life? What is going to keep me as a human plant thriving? And when I looked at it for my own life, they were very simple things. Sleep. So many new mothers do not get sufficient sleep, right? Diet. I was sort of getting by on coffee. Exercise. I wasn't exercising. Really basic things for the plant human to thrive. And we are born. When we are born with things just like a plant. You know, a plant needs sun and water and soil. Not all plants need soil these days, but that's another conversation. But so equally humans, you know, we need water, we need sleep, we need some very foundational, basic things. And these are not optional. And if you consider them optional, you'll find out very soon that they are not optional. And so this happened to me personally. And so I was a slow student, but I did learn these life skills. These basic foundational skills are very important. And as I was raising my daughters, I also was noticing that there was so much societal emphasis on academics. You know, one of my daughters was a competitive gymnast. So she was training 4 hours a day for gymnastics from a professional gymnastics coach.
Wow.
And so there was so much attention on certain skills, but then the really foundational skills, emotional literacy, environmental literacy, the classroom that we all occupy, they really didn't have a formal educator. I'd never been formally educated. So one day I simply decided that I was actually screaming at my daughter. She was leaving the house. She hadn't had her breakfast. And I was screaming at her as she was leaving for school. And I said, "You didn't have your breakfast." And she turned around and she said, "I don't have time." So I said, "You may be getting a 4.0 out of European history, but you are flunking personal care 101. And then I slammed the door. And I stood there and I said, "Well, of course she is, Marlaine. She has a mad woman wearing a bathrobe screaming at her for an educator." So that was really my aha moment where I said, okay, we need to change the curriculum in my own house. And that was the day I created what you referenced, the Life Skills Report Card, simply to communicate with my own daughters about the life skills that were foundational to them thriving. And
Question now.
and it
So there's a word that you're using continuously is foundational skills, right?
yes.
So, if you have to define foundational skills, so what exactly would you put the skills in the foundational skill?
Uh, so for us, for me, a few examples were sleep.
Right.
It's if you were to give a definition of foundational, it actually has two meanings.
Mhm.
One is it's sort of like the foundation of a house. Everything you do is built upon it. And if the foundation is not strong, nothing else, everything else will crumble.
Okay, that's
So
very true. The values and mindset putting out there, that's very true. So I totally agree. It starts from your own home.
so that's one meaning. The other meaning, however, is that it's core. There's actually the term it's not optional. You don't get to choose. Well, you can choose not to sleep maybe for a week, but then your body will crash.
True.
So it's not optional in the sense of, do I learn to ride a bicycle, right?
Mhm.
You're going to do it, or you're going to pay the price of not doing it. So foundational in that sense too.
Right. So and that was just a question because I think when a lot of people have their own definition, thank you so much and give a clarity when you talk about foundational skills. Yeah, please go ahead.
Well, that's why I appreciated so much your first question being, what is the definition of life skills? Because multiple definitions circulate, and harmonizing all the people who work in this arena, or really just people around the planet, their respect for life skills, their understanding of it. It's really essential that we have a common definition.
Right. True. Very true.
Otherwise, what are we discussing? So one of the things, our advocacy group started in 2009.
Mhm.
This is 2022, so over a decade. And the definition we have refined over time through many conversations is that life skills are the skills that every human being learns in some measure, not necessarily well. So for example, each of us, every human being learns emotional literacy. Yes.
Right.
Even if we are on the high, nonverbal autism, we still must learn some level of communication with our environment and it with us. So environmental literacy is really a mandatory skill that we all learn from the moment we are born, right? And many are studying now in the womb, we're learning emotional literacy. And then environmental literacy, the air we breathe. What do we do with our trash? Do we throw it out the window of our car? Do we recycle paper and plastics? Do we use toxic chemicals with our wash? So environmental literacy, all of us are in the classroom. And so the question isn't, will you learn life skills? The only question is, how well will you learn life skills? Who are your teachers? What is the quality of the curriculum? So that's our definition of life skills, the one we arrived at. It's a skill every human being learns, which is really gorgeous because that becomes the common thread in humanity. Yes, it's what we share with every fellow human being on the planet. So two examples, emotional literacy, environmental literacy. A third example we often reference is financial literacy, which really is resource management, yes? People may not have dollars, pardon me, but they're managing rice, something for food, maybe goats, they're managing their resources. So those are three examples. But the singular definition is, it needs to be a skill every human being learns. That's the criteria. And if it isn't, then it doesn't meet our definition of a life skill.
Right. So when you talk about introducing the curriculum and a teacher should be mindful, a parent should be mindful. So what are those quick pointers that you would actually highlight that a teacher or a parent should always be careful of teaching their children those life skills when they're actually getting into this. So, what are those top, say, 5 or 10 things that you want that they should be aware of that are very vital when we talk about life skills?
Well, I don't know that there's a top 5 per se. It's such an enormous field, life skills. But just the fact that before the child comes into the classroom in the morning,
Mhm.
they've already had a lot of homework.
Right.
They had to sleep. Hopefully they had breakfast, but many children, even here in the United States of America, do not have resources, do not have food. We have food insecurity in the United States, and many children come into classrooms and they're hungry. Well, a hungry child doesn't learn well. A tired child doesn't learn well. A child who, so I guess if there were top 5, have they slept? Are they hydrated? Did they have water that day? Water on our planet is in many areas a very difficult resource to procure, yes?
Mhm.
Clean water. So have they slept? Are they hydrated? Are they fed? And then what is the what emotional literacy homework did they have that morning? Were their parents fighting? Did they even have anybody welcoming them when they woke up in the morning?
Mhm.
Or were their parents working, or singular parent? Some children just get up out of bed on their own and go to school, yes? There's no parent home. So just respecting that this is a little human in front of you. And this little human had a lot of homework before they ever arrived in your classroom. And that homework doesn't go anywhere. And it impacts their competency level, or their, how well they're doing in those lessons.
Mhm.
That is going to impact hugely how well their brain works and how well their heart works, how well they function with the homework you are giving them. So having that humility and that reverence for what we refer to as the mandatory curriculum, that's important.
All right. So, talking about parenting, so I'm really curious to know. So, when you said that's parenting 2.0, then what is the difference between parenting 1.0 and parenting 2.0?
Very good question. Parenting 1.0 is really most people's, what most people think of the word parent.
Mhm.
If we use the word parent, we're talking about somebody who has children, directly has children, or, by whatever means, whether they've adopted them or, birthed them personally, but somebody who is directly involved with raising children. Conversely, parenting 2.0, what we recognize with that term is the fact that every adult on the planet actually has a role in the viability of future generations. Majority of people on the planet do pay taxes. Those taxes go to schools, those taxes go to wars, those taxes go to, hospitals, many different resources. So when we're communicating, when we're paying those taxes, what we value, what we deem important, and we are directly impacting the future generations. Whether we invest in, whether we pay millions of dollars for incarcerating individuals with low competencies and life skills, or we actually value the life skills and teach children the life skills, before they're struggling. So parenting 2.0 respects that every adult has a role in raising future generations and the viability of future generations. And there are, in fact, so many individuals that are doing great works around the planet, works that are impacting millions of children in a positive manner.
True, very true. So I'm not getting curious. So when we talk about Mama Marlin, so so what does Mama Marlin is? So you life skill educator, parent, and You inspired to Mama Marlin. So what is this, Mama Marlin?
When I actually used to call myself, because really came into this backwards. So I used to call myself a kitchen sink activist because I was in the role of a mother and simply identifying, gee, these are important things that we're learning and I need to improve how I'm doing it in my own home. So really, I just, I literally created a life skills report card in my kitchen. So I called myself a kitchen sink and I was sharing it. So I called myself a kitchen sink activist. And then I got an email from a woman one day that wanted to interview me. And she said, I'm getting my PhD in social entrepreneurship and I would like to interview you. And I said, what is social entrepreneur? And she said, it's someone who is like a business entrepreneur, but with social entrepreneur, you identify a problem in society and you come up with a novel means of rectifying it. So without really knowing it, I had come up with a problem in society, which was the fact that the educational process for the skills that each of us use every day throughout our lives actually had a very impoverished educational curriculum. And that was learning from people never formally educated, parents. And then I came up with the concept of the life skills report card as a means to elevate the curriculum, to examine those skills, to question what educational process is accompanying them, and to ask the simple question, what can we do to raise the bar on the educational process from mommy, yelling at you, to actually having a fun classroom from somebody who is an expert in this arena. So that was when I learned that I am, and I use that title now professionally, I am a social entrepreneur. And I'm just very fortunate to support life skills professionals around the globe that are also striving to elevate the life skills educational process.
Right. So when you talk about life skill report, so what exactly it is like? Is it a reflectory thing or reflective questions over there, or like what exactly it is and how it can be used?
It's on, if you, I always, I always feel a little rude when I say, oh, just Google it. Just Google it. American 2.0. I need to Google it myself. There may be other report cards out there. The important thing with life skills report card is to respect it as a concept rather than a specific document. In the very same manner we respect academic report cards. Yes,
Right.
we know an academic, if I say academic report card, you have a general idea whether they use letters or numbers.
Right.
We are not prescriptive in the sense we don't say, oh, specifically you must cite these life skills. We do, however, ask that the life skills people use if they create their own life skills report card, is that they meet that criteria of, is this a skill every human being learns in some measure? So is it a mandatory skill? It's not optional. Otherwise, it becomes a bit of a junk drawer. People throw everything in there, changing car tires, they'll just throw everything in there and say, they call it adulting, or, there's all kinds of terms. It's kind of a big junk drawer. So we really ask people to ask this question. What is the criteria you are using when you use the term life skill? And is the skill you're referencing a skill every human being learns by default? Again, it doesn't mean well, but they do learn it.
Right. That is something that makes it like, so usually, so with that, so even so one next question. So when you talk about that, is it really that every human want that skill, right? So usually people get confused with 21st century skill to life skill. So can you just like enlighten with this as well?
I actually really do like the term 21st century skills. I think, I'm comfortable with that sort of in a general sense. We even say on our website, 21st century education for 21st century skills. So it's sort of a generic term. But if the difference, I think, is one thing that happened with life skills is for many centuries, we didn't really look at the cracks in the educational process, what was wrong with, your parents teaching you. It seemed to work despite all the wars we've had over millennia. But with the 21st century, things like, let's take the arena of emotional literacy
Right.
and the sub branch of communication and the sub branch of that of digital literacy. So previously, parents were the primary teachers of life skills, primary teachers of emotional literacy. Well, here we are in the 21st century, and voila, parents, often the children are teaching the parents digital literacy.
Very
Yes.
true.
So the crack in the system, the weakness in the system really exposed itself in the 21st century. The expectation that parents will be the primary educators of life skills, that really fell apart. We now see in so many ways, really, if you take any chronic societal problem and you ask yourself, where do we learn the skills to not only avoid the problem, but to excel in this arena? Let's look at, world wars. Where do we learn the skills to avoid them? Most children were raised with dictates and punishments. Do what I say, and if you don't, I punish you, right?
That's true. Yeah. That's where
So,
they start.
so it's not really,
initiating.
yeah. So it's not really a surprise that we have adults around the planet saying, do what I say, or I bomb you. It's what everybody learned.
Yeah,
And we are going to have to teach different to have different.
that's true. That's quite learning. Well, it was really lovely to hear a lot of things. So something that I want to know more about is when you talk about like being a global life skill ambassador. So I was just going through that. So how people can actually join that parenting community? What are the resources that they'll get a help of that they can actually come up?
I created the Parenting 2.0 group on LinkedIn
Uh-huh.
in 2009
Okay.
for the purpose of aggregating life skills professionals.
Right.
And that is a wonderful community with over 10,000 members.
Oh.
So anyone who is a life skills professional, simply joining Parenting 2.0 on LinkedIn. And I know people say they're not on LinkedIn. This might be a good opportunity to give that platform a try. It's, it's maybe not as consumer friendly as Instagram and Facebook and other things, but that's actually a benefit because people have to pass through multiple social filters before you're going to find them in your group on LinkedIn. First of all, they have to self-identify as a professional. They have to self-identify, they have to be internally referenced because really nobody's out there going to teach you how to use LinkedIn, right? They need to value community. So groups such as our Parenting 2.0 group value connecting with fellow professionals.
Right.
And so by the time they reach my group, it's really nice. You really have a quality group of individuals. And so we founded the group in 2009. And then in 2011, people liked each other so much that they wanted to have an international conference. We actually hosted the first international conference for life skills professionals in 2012 in San Diego, California. And from that focused concentration of professionals, we birthed an educational nonprofit, which is called the Global Presence. That's actually our formal entity. And we recognize when people come into Parenting 2.0 and we learn about their works and what they're doing around the planet, that's when we shine a bright light and we do nominate people for the title of Global Presence Ambassador. So if we're kind of, it's sort of like going out into your garden and there's some plants are just ready, to be part of a bigger salad. So that's what happens. And then we really focus on the ambassadors. The ambassadors are much more collaborative with each other.
Right.
And so really beautiful things are born of those collaborations.
That was beautiful. I mean, so actually we're running out of time, and it was so lovely to hear you out, and we'll definitely want to go on with. Well, so what all the details about Parenting 2.0, the LinkedIn profile, and about the global presence, the details will be mentioned down here. You can definitely check that out. And if you have questions regarding parenting or regarding the life skills that you have, you can definitely put it out there in the comment. The questions gonna be definitely answered either directly by mom or we're gonna reach back to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, mom. It was really pleasure having you here.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
All right, then see you in our next webinar. Thank you.